People are already kind of acting like Islam is the uncrowned welterweight champion at this point.
I think it's nonsense, honestly. I'm annoyed as a fan that Islam is moving up to 170 pounds.
It's the fight that absolutely needs to happen for all of us to move on with our middleweight lives.
That's crazy. I've never even seen that happen personally.
Actually, you're right. Like that, I hadn't really put those pieces together, but once you said it, I'm like, you know what? I'm in. I really want to see what happens.
Welcome back to Against the Cage. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm here with my co-hosts Scott Fontana and Erich Richter. This week on the Post's YouTube channel, Scott interviewed two UFC legends, Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen, who are coaching the 20th anniversary of The Ultimate Fighter Season 33 here in our studio. Scott, how did that interview go?
You know, it was a lot of fun. We actually hit on some very interesting things about Ultimate Fighter history, the upcoming season, some other things relating to both these guys, and also looked ahead at UFC 316 in Newark. But I wanted to share this clip with you guys that's not in the interview, which you can go find on our YouTube channel. It's a lot of fun. I think you'll enjoy it.
Is this effeminate? Do guys cross their legs? Do you look at this as effeminate?
I don't judge.
It's just comfortable.
Whatever
There's nothing wrong with it. My
would
back
seem like
bothers me. I cross my leg.
It would hurt. So listen, my coach told me that because I would get out of practice and go against the wall and sit back with my legs crossed, that's why we have back problems.
Really?
So you know how like there's always that space in the wall when you kind of sit and there's like a space in the wall and your legs are crossed? That's why you have back problems.
The crossing of the legs was the problem.
The crossing of the legs and the space against the wall opposed to the back.
You made a comment. You said it looked like this might hurt. Like what? Like I'm pinching a testicle, or
just underneath right that area.
All right. We're not talking about testicles at all.
No, we're talking about glutes.
I don't believe I asked any questions.
All right. Fair enough.
Love a good folding the legs testicles joke, eh?
Classic. Well, listen, if you don't want to miss any of those great moments or interviews like that, make sure you give us a subscribe so you can watch interviews like that and listen to us banter about all things MMA, which we are about to do because we had some very, very big news this week. Tuesday night, Dana White goes on IG Live, Erich's favorite, and announces that Islam Makhachev is vacating his lightweight title to move up to welterweight and fight the newly crowned champion, Jack Della Maddalena. As a result, everyone's been waiting for International Fight Week and what that main event would be. As many people speculated, it would be the former lightweight champion, Charles Oliveira, taking on Ilia Topuria, the former featherweight champion. And since then, since Islam has announced that he would be moving up, there has been a bit of a back and forth between Ilia and Islam. The two were going to fight had Bilal won that welterweight championship over the weekend. I'll read it out for you guys now. Makhachev says, "Difference between me and you, that I cleaned top list in my division, moved to next, but you ran away from two contenders who had consecutive 5 to 9 wins in FW featherweight division. You are nobody in lightweight division, just a big mouth from Spain with nice haircut. Go get one W and we can talk, boy." Now, I'm not entirely sure if this was Makhachev's fingers typing it or Ali.
There is a decent chance this was Ali Abdelaziz's manager.
Yes. I digress. Ilia Topuria responds to that and says, "The difference between you and me is that I am a man and you are a coward. I speak and fight. You talk and hide. Run away far, leaving no trace." And then you could see in Cyrillic, in Russian, I translated this to, using the powers of Google Translate, "You are a little boy."
I believe that is Ilia.
Yes, I do believe that those were Ilia's fingertips going on there. Listen, a lot to unpack. So much news, but let's break down this situation here. Scott, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts? How do we unpack all this?
Well, the first thing I unpack is that Islam or Ali really does appreciate the mane on Ilia Topuria. He loves that hairstyle. That's obviously the most important part. No, but this is just, now we're getting more back and forth about a fight that is truly not going to happen. If you were going to do this, why didn't you get the fight together to begin with? That's what seems silly to me. What's the point? What do you gain from this? I don't know. What do you think, Erich?
I think it's nonsense, honestly. I'm annoyed as a fan that Islam is moving up to 170 pounds. I understand he's the pound for pound number one, but what has he really done at 155 that warrants moving up. He's defended the title 4 times. He fought Alex Volkanovski twice. Once he nearly lost to a guy moving up in weight. The second time he waxed him. And then his third title defense was Dustin Poirier. And then he fought Renato Moicano on short notice after Arman Tarzukian pulled out. At 155, Arman should absolutely have gotten a title shot here. And Paddy Pimblett's moving up, and I was kind of interested in seeing how he played against Islam if he got another win there. Obviously, Ilia Topuria is the fight to make right now. So what has Islam really done to deserve it? I mean, he's obviously, he's only has one loss on his record. For me, I would never have moved up to 170. I wouldn't have wanted him to move up to 170 if I was the UFC. I'm sure the trend convinced him otherwise, but I'm annoyed because like Ilia Makhachev would have been. I think there'd be a serious debate between Tom Aspinall versus John Jones and Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria as the fight of the year.
I can see what you're saying there, but first off, to go back, a couple things to unpack from that. Arman Tsarukyan got a title shot. He failed to fulfill his end of getting the title shot. So I don't know if it's accurate to say that part. We want that fight. I want that fight. I think we do kind of need that fight. But that is not Islam's fault. So I'm actually going to give him a little bit of a break there. But what I don't know. I guess I sort of disagree with you in the sense that I do think he deserves the chance to move up because he has proved to be a very dominant champion, even albeit not in as many championship fights as we're hoping he would have, but plenty more than Ilia Topuria has had, who moved up as well. Same situation. Jake, what do you got? You got something.
So here's where my head is at, and it's honestly a problem with the tweet, and I know it's probably Ali's fingers on this, but saying that he cleaned the top list in his division, in the top 5, he has only fought Dustin and Charles, which was when he claimed the title. Now, there is an argument to be made. Of course, he did fight Arman Tsarukyan earlier in his career, but that was 2019. A lot of things have happened since then. And I do agree with you, Scott, in the sense that Arman not being able to do that fight, that's not on Islam. But to say that there isn't more work for Makhachev to have done at 155, I don't think that that's fair. I think, Ilia coming in, that's a super fight. And I do think that there was way less for Ilia to do at featherweight than Islam had at 155. And one last point that I'm going to make is that while I'm sure Ilia moving up was like this big legacy thing that we hear fighters talk about, I want to build my legacy, right? He was never saying that he would come back down to featherweight. He couldn't make the weight, is according to what he was saying. Islam...
That's what he said. He's not the largest of featherweights.
Of course, right. That is just what he said. But, he's planning on moving up. Islam, for all accounts, before the weekend was saying he didn't want to vacate his title. Seems like he wanted to maybe defend it. So it's not that Islam couldn't do one more fight, which was 40-something days away,
What I think is fascinating. I just want to put this in real quick, Derek, and let me kick it to you. But the fact that he's saying that the account that is presented to the world as Islam Makhachev is saying the division was cleaned out. Justin Gaethje is still in that top 5 there. Justin Gaethje has a manager named Ali Abdelaziz as well, which is kind of a fascinating element of that whole dynamic. But Eric, what do you got?
I'll just add that Islam Makhachev was obviously, he won almost every fight he had. He beat every opponent that he had, basically. So Islam Makhachev was a massive favorite in most fights. He was actually not that big of a favorite against Ilia Topuria in terms of the betting odds. He was only a minus 245 favorite, which is way low for him. He was minus 835 against Moicano. Let's see, he was minus 350 against Arman Tarzukian, minus 400 against Poirier, minus 350 against Oliveira. All these, this was the most competitive fight for him.
That's still not very competitive on paper, though.
Well, it's closer, right? Look,
it's
at the
closer,
end of the day,
but we're still looking at that as somebody who would be a large favorite. Would you place straight money on just a straight money line bet for that? Like, is that worth the juice?
Where do I think the odds will go? I think is the better question. I think
no, I mean, like, with 245, just in general, like, does that sound competitive enough that you're like, yeah, maybe I would stay away with it, or maybe like I could still bet that. I don't know. I'm curious.
I probably wouldn't bet Islam at minus 235. No, but I'm also not a big favorites better. I know people who are. Like, where do I think the odds will go? I think money would come on Islam. at that price, considering it's just so low compared to where it usually is for him.
It would come up anyway. So we're still talking about a large favorite, someone people expect to win. That's what I'm getting at.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you can't, in a vacuum, you can't just make a contender that will beat him, right? Like, it's the same issue with John Jones. At a certain point, you have to play whoever's up against you. But in theory, the most competitive fight was Topuria, in my opinion. I mean, in odds too.
I mean, I would think that in theory it's actually Sarukian. I know they're not going to give that fight right away. The UFC has closed the door off to giving that right away. That was what it was. But I do think that realistically, if Islam wants to move up, we look at him as a potential very competitive possible welterweight champion, and we already looked at him as a very dominant lightweight champion who's been doing this for several years, held the belt for several years. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, not say that I'm not okay with it. I would just say that, like, I'm kind of pissed because I feel like the Ilia Makhachev fight is more juice to it as it sits right
Well,
here.
there is. I mean, they're still talking, right? That's the whole
Yes,
point.
yeah. So you guys have kind of answered this question, and I don't think that anyone disagrees. My next question was going to be, does Islam deserve to move up? I think at this point, all three of us are like, sure, he deserves to move up. He's pound for pound number one. He's defended his title. My question off of that, are you okay with the timing of it?
I'd prefer not. I would prefer he did get a couple more fights in. I really wanted to see. I wanted to see Sarukian. That wasn't going to happen. I am actually in the camp that's less pumped for him versus Ilia because I don't see that as competitive as a lot of people do. I think that would be a lot more a squash than a lot of people seem to think. But I am curious about number one him as far as Sarukian. There's also, again, Paddy Pimblett coming up on the rise. I'd be curious to see if they wanted to try and make that happen. I don't necessarily think that would be. We've seen enough of Paddy Pimblett that I'm a believer in him. I would be curious about him versus Islam Makhachev, and I think they're going to miss out on some potential like real box office juice there.
100%. The box office juice at 155 is all over the place. 170 I felt like was taken care of. I feel like there's so many contenders there. Like with Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Gary's up there now, Sean Brady. There's so much at 170, and it's just like you put Makhachev in there. It's like you muddy the waters further. There's already so much gook in the water, and that's like you just dump more into the lake. It's tough for me to do that. So now it's like 170 is super loaded. Now 155 is kind of, we're a little lost now.
And even Jack Della Maddalena, our brand new champion. I mean, there's some real shine on him. I think this almost moves him to second fiddle, second banana now. We're not even really talking about him. Look, it's taken us this long to even get anywhere near him, really, in this conversation. He just put on a fantastic, amazing performance as an underdog, coming in and winning a champion in a potential fight of the year. And we're still not talking about him yet. So I feel like a disservice was done.
To go off of that, I completely agree with all you guys. I think that in my ideal scenario, Islam fights one more time at 155. I'm super happy with that if he fights Arman. I would love the Ilia Topuria fight, but honestly, it's a bit of a toss-up for me. No real preference there. And like you said, we have this newly crowned welterweight champion. He's fresh off of getting this belt. I think it would make more sense to at least maybe let us sit with him being champion for a little bit longer before throwing us into this whole debacle. Yeah, or have him, defend once, and then it builds up that matchup a little bit more. People are already kind of, acting like Islam is the uncrowned welterweight champion at this point. So there's not it's just not there for me that much. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts.
The only thing I would say is, having said all of this, my preference is for him to stay down at 55. Let Jack fight Jack Della fight some of these other guys. Jack Della Maddalena, that's his full name. But I would like that. But when this fight comes around, we're all going to be very interested. We're all going to be hyped for it. We'll have accepted that these other things aren't in the cards, and this actually is a very compelling fight.
Yeah. Okay. How are we feeling on that one? You guys good to move on to the next one? Because there was one more announcement that Dana made, which honestly, this one is probably in terms of fights that have been announced for the year, this could be one of the most looked forward to or awaited. Dricus du Plessis taking on Khamzat Chimaev, UFC 319 in Chicago, August 16th. Obviously, that's the fight that everyone wanted to see. Khamzat's been gunning for a title shot for quite a while now, but we've got Dricus du Plessis, who's basically an immovable object versus an unstoppable force. For Dricus, do you think that this is, and Eric, I'll start with you if you can, do you think that this is the most compelling opponent of Dricus's title reign so far?
I think it's no matter what happens in this fight, I think that Khamzat Chimaev has always been the scary ghost of this division, and nobody's wanted to fight him. Everyone's been kind of scared of him, seemingly. I mean, the same comes into here, right? Like Khamzat Chimaev comes in as a favorite. I'll kick it to you guys. What do you guys think the odds are for this title fight?
Scott, you want to go first?
I'm gonna put Chimaev as minus 280.
I was gonna say minus 300, so I'm right in that ballpark.
Minus 215, so a little bit more respect for Dricus.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit of shine.
That's impressive shine for Dricus, I'll say.
Yeah, totally some love for Dricus there. And it's interesting the way that this fight will work out because it's like how much cardio does Khamzat Chimaev have at this point? Like, we all remember that shot that he ate against Gilbert Burns, which everybody was kind of like, how did he eat that shot? Where, like that fight looked like it was going to be over at the end of the first round. So now, Gilbert Burns kind of fallen on some hard times since then. So, it really comes down to, can he work his grappling, get an early finish? And I think Dricus du Plessis has the grappling chops to really to stand there and take take his best shots and take his best takedown attempts. So this is a fantastic fight. Great way to end the summer as well. What do you guys got?
Well, first off, I'm just going to point out a little bit later, I'm going to have something to say about Gilbert Burns because he ties into this episode as well. But as this fight, it's the fight that absolutely needs to happen for all of us to move on with our middleweight lives. That's what we absolutely need. We've been waiting for Chimaev to get to this point forever. I mean, I have friends who were saying to me after he made his UFC debut, can we just put him into the title fight? Like, some semi-reasonably balanced people who are literally just frothing at the mouth for this fight. But the reason why it took so long are just all of the myriad problems that come along with Khamzat Chimaev. He had long COVID. He's had other health issues and that kind of thing. He's had visa issues in recent years. This is all part of the Khamzat Chimaev experience, which is waiting for him to fight, particularly in America of late. But so just to kind of go back to the handicapping question before, I'm putting it at minus 280 if we're assuming the bet is off, if the fight is off. If we're having to factor in that maybe I lose money if he doesn't even make it to the cage, then I'm putting it much closer to even money because I don't know. There's a lot of things that can go wrong.
So that's a good transition into the next point. Nasruddin Imavov is the backup fighter for this. Eric, you mentioned one of the questions about Chimaev is his cardio. Scott, you've kind of led into this. Another big question about Khamzat Chimaev is he even going to show up to fight? You mentioned the visa issues. That has been supposedly resolved with a certain person being in the White House that is very close friends with Dana White.
Part of that is also the fact that he now has United Arab Emirates citizenship, so he has a different passport.
Okay, thank you.
No longer a Russian passport is trying to get this done.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Look into that story for all the listeners. It's an interesting one.
So my question is, what do you think the chances are? Scott, I'll start with you since you kind of proposed it. What do you think the chances are that this fight actually ends up happening, or that Khamzat walks in?
I have to believe it is going to happen. It does sound like the visa issues are clarified. Chimaev has even said in interviews before that the reason why this wasn't getting done is because someone other than Donald Trump was in the White House, no longer an impediment to that situation. So I would think that part is probably resolved. Health-wise, who knows? I mean, that's as unpredictable as anything. You almost flip a coin. So, but I'm really hoping we just get this thing going. We've got to have this. No disrespect to Nasruddin Imavov. This is the fight that just has to happen so we can go on with it.
Yeah, hopefully he makes weight because that was always been an issue.
Yeah, well now that
I think at 85 he's okay. It's not 70. 70 was God. No, 70 was. I think he'll. But you never know. I'll give you that, Eric. I mean, we used to have this debate. I don't know if you guys remember Anthony Rumble Johnson when he was in the UFC. He was at 170. He ended up fighting a few fights later from his time at 170 against Andrei Arlovsky at heavyweight. So we're talking about a massive individual who used to get to 170. And then he also, when he's done with 170, they had to move up to 85 against Vitor Belfort. And he missed weight by 12 pounds for this one. He got to 197. So you never know. That's a different person. This is Khamzat Chimaev. I do believe he'll get the weight, but we'll see about the health.
He's shown that one time when he missed weight at 170 and Rogan questioned about it and he didn't want to hear it. It was a bad look at the time, I'll say, for the amount that he cares about weight cutting and actually getting to the contracted class.
There's some potential maturity issues, but I mean, he's older now. He's 31 years old. He's not a kid anymore, and I know he's a father too. So hopefully, at least a little bit of maturity there.
Right. Brian Stan's been talking about Khamzat Chimaev since like 2011.
Oh yeah, like when he was like a teenager. But we didn't know who that was. He didn't even say the name. We had to figure that out post.
Just a Swedish guy. He's like, you should see this guy from Sweden. And I was like,
the Swedish guy from Chechnya. Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. So listen, let's just hope that fight ends up happening the way that we want it to without any controversy. We'll see how that goes. I think that wraps up some of the news for this week, looking ahead to those fight announcements and all that. But, in the back of this whole conversation that we started with Islam moving up to 170, we talked about him a bit before. Jack Della Maddalena coming away with an amazing win on Saturday night. Deserves all the flowers. Same thing for his partner in the octagon, Bilal Muhammad. Eric, I'm going to throw you under the bus a tiny bit here. You said last week that you could never really be excited for a Bilal Muhammad fight, but it ended up being a pretty great fight as far as welterweight fights go. I'll start with you, Eric. Did this fight surpass your expectations? And off of that, how does this rank among the welterweight title fights that you've seen?
Above and beyond. Boy, was I wrong. Bilal Muhammad's fight with Jack Della Maddalena is one of the better middleweight title fights we've ever seen here. His willingness to stand and trade, his volume was still on point. He did mix in takedowns. And one part of the fight that I would encourage all listeners to go back and watch was with a minute and a half left of the 5th round. Bilal Muhammad finally gets the takedown, looks to be passing into side control and going for a crucifix position. And Jack Della is flat on his back. This is a phenomenal set of movements here. Bilal Muhammad is just trying to get his leg out from half guard. And, Jack Della Maddalena, who is coached by jiu-jitsu grappling savant Craig Jones, Jack Della, he's able to do a knee lever sweep, post out on the armpit, and get up and almost knock out Bilal. It was 2-2 going into round 5, we know after the fact. So that was anybody's fight. Bilal looks like he's going to get a finish. He does a knee lever sweep from half guard, from deep half even, and posting in the armpit, getting back up to the feet, almost getting the knockout. Unbelievable stuff. Dana White gave Bilal Muhammad his flowers as well on social media afterwards, saying, respect, absolute banger. The whole thing. But Scott, I'll kick it to you. What do you think about the fight?
Dude, it was amazing. I know you were down on it. You were very down on it. I was a little more optimistic. I did not foresee an absolute classic on our hands. There was no pathway that I saw that, because the fight didn't play out anything like I really thought it would be. I thought we would see a very similar Bilal Muhammad situation that we've seen before. He's going for takedowns against potentially a vulnerable, more striking oriented fighter. We've seen Jack Della Maddalena struggle in fights. I mean, he fought down to competition on late notice. He almost lost to Gilbert Burns. That fight, he was about to lose that if he didn't survive another 77 seconds. This was, everything defied my expectations. It was fantastic. Everyone showed different dimensions to their game, and it was a true mixed martial arts fight, a bloody one, just such a war. You saw Bilal Muhammad at the end of that fight. He had the Rip Vermilion. He had all of this stuff. Really tough fight. Amazing fight for us, though. So as much as you got to wish Bilal Muhammad well, he took a lot of injuries in there. I mean, Jack Della did too, but not the same. But this was total classic. I've seen basically every welterweight championship fight going all the way back to 2000. So I've got a wide berth to pull from. But I have a top 5. I'm going to go 5-1, and I'll tell you what they are. There's some recency bias, I'll admit. Tyron Woodley against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson the first time at Madison Square Garden. I was in the building for that one. There's a little bit of bias there too. Number 4, Kamaru Usman against Colby Covington the first time as well. That was an amazing fight for just one of the most stacked cards we've ever seen in mixed martial arts, possibly the most. Number 3, this one, Jack Della Maddalena over Bilal Muhammad. I'm putting that number 3. And then frankly, a lot of these you can kind of move around. So I'm not like that set on it, but this is where I have it right now, a few days later. Number 2, Robbie Lawler against Carlos Condit, especially for that absolutely amazing 5th round. That makes the whole fight. And number 1, I think we all know, Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald, the second time right after Conor McGregor became the interim champion at 145. This is possibly the greatest fight ever.
So obviously I was very much expecting the Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald fights to be in there. In terms of fights that I have watched, and I've seen clips, of course, of Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald. We'll have to make that a full fight assignment at some point. I'm sure it will be. For me, the only thing that could come to mind was Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards, the second fight, of course, for the title. And it's this weird sort of conundrum I was having in my head is like, obviously the fight itself, round for round, wasn't as exciting as this one, but walking away from that welterweight fight, I felt like I was floating, you know. But this one was just a straight banger all the way through. So it's I don't know, the criteria there's not much of a rubric on this one. It's
all subjective. But what I liked about this fight is it did heat up as it went too. It was good throughout, and it got better and better.
Yeah.
So I have a top 5 list as well. I did. I don't have as many. I don't have as many like recent ones. I also don't have this one in the top 5, so it's a little bit different. I got GSP versus Matt Hughes 1 as number 5. There's a lot of GSP on here because and it's weird because whatever. I'm not gonna spoil it. Got a little excited. So GSP versus Matt Hughes 1, and then I have Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards as number 4. Lawler Condit 3, Matt Serra GSP 2. I loved that fight, even though it's short. And then obviously Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald 2, as the best fight ever. I have a hard time rewatching that one now that I've watched it, you know, at least 2 or 3 times. But I have a hard time rewatching because like knowing the amount of damage that Rory McDonald took in his career, I feel like he got beat within an inch of his life in that fight. Like that is like super violent. Like that is the most.
He basically had to quit. He basically had to quit in a fight that he was winning. He was winning that fight.
Yes.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
It's super violent. Super violent. Like it's hard to watch sometimes.
Jake, I'll give it away. Robbie wins.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I knew that part.
Hey, you know what? Honorable mention too, because you threw out some of those older fights. I want to go honorable mention to the 2 fights between Matt Hughes and Frank Trigg. Those are amazing fights too. Quick fights as well, 1-round fights. I mean, shoot, that was a free homework for you guys. Go watch a couple of 1-round fights that are just fantastic from back in the day.
Hey, there we go. Alrighty, so I think that takes care of welterweight for UFC 315. A lot of stuff happened at flyweight and is going to be happening soon at flyweight for women. Valentina Shevchenko, of course, retained her flyweight title versus the very clearly number 1 contender, Manon Fiorot. As well on the card, Natalia Silva beat former champion Alexa Grasso, but with Valentina's win, I mean, we kind of alluded to this last week. That really sets up the fight with Zhang Weili, champ, if Zhang does end up wanting to move up to 125. The fight itself for Valentina versus Manon Fiorot, not as much of a banger as the main event. Going off of that, Scott, I'll start with you. Do you think that this diminishes at all this champ fight with Zhang Weili if that's where they decide to go?
I actually think the other way. I think there's actually a little bit more shine on Valentina Shevchenko because she's coming into this fight a trilogy of fights with Alexa Grasso where, frankly, a lot of the mistakes that she makes were on full display. That's why she lost the first fight. She made some very key errors and basically got caught in the 4th round in a submission that she just allowed to happen. In the second fight, I mean, that came down to an unfortunate scoring situation where a very, very strong and trustworthy judge in Mike Bell gave a 10-8 in the 5th round. That kind of swayed things. That was unfortunate, but I still think he was actually one of the better judges that we have out there in this sport. But then we had the third fight where Valentina goes out. She looks very good. She beats Alexa Grasso to the point where we're not clamoring for them to have a 4th fight to settle the number of fights at 111. We all, I think, feel pretty good about Valentina here. But then she comes into this one to get back to this point. And man, up for her, we had a very high opinion of her as a contender in this weight class, and she really just did not look up to the challenge. She was in it, she was in the fight, but she was not in any real position to win that fight. So I think it puts more shine on Valentina, which only helps make it more compelling for the other champ coming in.
So maybe I was a little bit more excited because I was just singing Shevchenko throughout the week, right? She's underdog, and I was talking about it. She'd only been an underdog a handful of times in her career, and I was singing her praises throughout the week, and Shevchenko did exactly what I thought that she would do. I didn't think she should have been an underdog the whole time. Obviously, I bet on her, and for me, I thought that she looked amazing. I thought Fiora did a solid job. She got annihilated in the first round. Shevchenko went from plus 120 to minus 1,000 within 7 minutes of fight time. That's crazy. I've never even seen that happen personally.
That's quite an overreaction, Derek.
Super overreaction. No, it was an overreaction by the odds.
Yes, absolutely.
The odds was an overreaction. I remember talking about it with my buddy. It's like, whoa, Shevchenko's minus 1,000. There's a lot of fight left. This is going to decision. But it was like, whatever. Fiora can win the last 3 rounds and still get it. And I thought Fiora did a good job. She talked with her coaches in between rounds 1 and 2, totally changed her game plan, went heavy on the grappling and the cage push, which would have worked maybe like 10 years ago, but just doesn't work now. I thought Shevchenko looked awesome. I thought that her counter right looked, obviously, it resulted in a knockdown at the end of round 4, and then Fiora got saved by the bell. That was going to be a finish, no doubt. Shout out Shevchenko. It gets me way more excited for Zhang Weili fight. I think she's still at the top of her game. Her speed's not exactly where it was, but she's, kicking the roundhouse kicks, the body kicks, those are still elite, and she can still grapple. So I haven't seen odds for the fight. I have no idea who would be favored if Zhang Weili and Valentina Shevchenko fight, but oh my good. And one other thing that I'd just say, a lot of MMA media was super down on this card because 4 out of the 5 main card fights went to decision. I'm almost convinced that they don't even really watch the fights because most of these fights were bangers. Those last 2 fights were awesome. And it was bizarre to me to see a negative, a lot of negative.
I didn't see anything negative.
Brennan Schaub said that this card was the worst that he's
Eric's
ever seen.
got a beef with Brennan Schaub.
I hear
Brennan
you.
Schaub is technically media, yes. But, I mean,
I hear
he's
you,
also kind of a reactionary guy. That's just what he's doing.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. He was like, I'm trying to keep a straight face. I'm trying to give you guys the positivity of what the UFC is, but they're super lazy. The posters suck, and that fight card was terrible. 4 out of the 5 fights were
they can use work. This one I didn't even hate.
Oh my god, who cares about the posters? But for me, I don't know, dude.
Cool.
Yeah, I get people do care about them. You're right. I shouldn't say that, but yeah, it's just mind blowing to me. For me, dude, that women's featherweight fight was a banger. Full stop. I thought that was a banger for women's featherweight.
Can I give you something though, Eric? I think you had set the bar much lower than you needed to for that fight, so I think it exceeded your bar.
That does, yeah.
All of those fights way exceeded my expectations, so I'm gonna have to reevaluate my rankings in the future, which I'm fully admitting to. I think my expectation was a little too low.
Fair enough. Okay, so I think we can come away from that one and close that one out. Another big thing that happened. Oh, actually, one more thing on flyweight. It is worth noting that as far as the Natalia Silva situation goes, Erin Blanchfield and Macy Barber are going to be fighting in 2 weeks. So who knows if the winner of that one will end up facing Natalia Silva for the #1 contender spot. Whoever comes out of Zhang and Shevchenko. A lot of stuff going on in flyweight.
Lined up pretty well for that, Jake. Yeah. Actually, you're right. That I hadn't really put those pieces together, but once you said it, I'm like, you know what? I'm actually right now. I'm gonna hardline it right now. I'm jumping right in. It needs to be Zhang Weili, and then we have it's almost like a little tournament we have now, where we've got the other side of the bracket is Erin Blanchfield against Macy Barber, and the winner of that gets Natalia Silva to go to the finals against the winner of the champion versus champion fight.
Hunter Campbell, I'm coming for your job. There we go.
I think women's MMA is in such a good place. And again, to reference Brendan Schaub, he said that women's MMA is in the worst place that it's been in forever. And I think that is just outrageous. I think women's MMA is in such a good place. I think there's so much talent. Natalia Silva is a future champ potential. Yeah.
She had a
People
great.
call it women's MMA all the time, and honestly, it really starts to irk me because
I'm irked right now.
There are a lot of fights that are not interesting. That they aren't. That is true. You go outside that top 10, and sometimes you get the wrong matchup even in the top 10, and it's not going to be aesthetically the most pleasing. I will fully admit to that as well. But frankly, at the top of the weight class, this is very similar to heavyweights. Heavyweights are not very interesting until you get right near the top, and I think it's actually pretty fascinating. And now at featherweight, or excuse me, at flyweight, we have so many contenders. We just talked about 4 or 5. This is a fascinating time for this weight class. I'm in. I really want to see what happens.
Definitely. And I mean, bantamweight, we've been talking about that for weeks now. There's a lot going on over there.
We talked about that one with DC and Chael.
Yes. All the more plug for you guys to go watch that video. And just one more thing closing out on that situation. I thought Natalia Silva absolutely has the personality to become a star. So if she does end up going through the next round of this supposed flyweight tournament that we're talking about, I think that there's a lot of room for her at the top as well. Another thing that happened on Saturday night, Jose Aldo. Give a moment for the
Look at this
applause
guy
on my pronunciation there. He retired in the cage.
You should tell the listeners that you speak a little bit.
I do speak a tiny bit of Brazilian Portuguese. Which
if you guys see Jake on the street and you speak Portuguese fluently, just go up to him and speak it. He'll get you. I promise.
I will nod and act like I'm hearing you, and then I'll be like, "Si."
Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigado. Tudo bem. Tudo bem. Okay, so Jose Aldo, one more time. He retired in the cage on Saturday night. This is the second time he's announced his retirement. This time seems a little bit more final. Some of the things that he said, courtesy of our good friend Fabiano Busquet. I am not sure if that's. I've only ever read it, but Fabiano.
Look at you. Your pronunciation just fell off a cliff.
Come on now. So he said, I don't want to go into war all the time and go through this. I just don't have it in my heart anymore. I think this is the last time you're going to see me. I just can't do this anymore. A big thing, of course, that I failed to mention so far is that Jose Aldo did not make 135. The fight got moved to featherweight. He had a very difficult weight cut, which, I mean, as you get older, weight cuts get harder. My question to you guys is are we satisfied? Is this the right time for him to go? And let's start with Scott.
Yeah, I want to take that because, look, when you start talking the way he was talking, and obviously we're getting Fabiano, who's very capable at his job, his interpretation of that translated or interpreted into English for us. But if that is as accurate as I assume it is, this is someone who is done. They cannot do it anymore. It's not that they don't want to. It's that it is over. Like I have accepted my fate. I can't do this. And I'm moving on. And I think that's a very mature thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do. He knows that he's not going to win a championship at any fight anymore, at any weight class anymore. He was hopeful he'd still make one more run at bantamweight. That's gone. He can't even hit bantamweight. He's not going to make the noise of 45 again that he did 10 years ago. It's that ship has sailed. I appreciate that. I think we can graciously let him move on into retirement. He is, for my money, possibly on my Mount Rushmore of mixed martial artists. I think he is just has one of the most incredible resumes. Just to rattle it off, 11 wins in championship fights across UFC and WEC. That is a mammoth amount. 10 career wins over top 5 guys according to Fight Matrix, and he's 14-7 against their top 10 all time as well. I mean, this is someone who always fought the best. He had no easy roads to do everything he did, and he still managed to accomplish what he did. I wish him happy trails.
Yeah, I'm still surprised. I'm surprised that people forget that he was the featherweight champion and then he moved down to bantamweight as he got older, which people don't really do.
Yeah,
I think
who's forgetting? Oh, that part of it. I understand. Yeah, like you got to be the champion there.
No. That's a good point, Eric.
Yeah, that doesn't happen often to see somebody lose that weight as they get older. Usually, it's as you get older, you move up in weight.
Yeah.
So for Aldo, he's people also might not know he's also like a really good soccer player. He was like a semi-pro soccer player in Brazil. So he's just an all-time great athlete that came to this sport. I think he's the best featherweight of all time. And I think that, yeah, I'd say this is a fine time for him to go. How'd you guys score that fight? Scott, I'll start with that. We'll start with you there.
You know, I actually hadn't gotten the chance to go back and watch from a scoring perspective. I was doing with some other work-related activities as well, so I was more watching a little more fan or passively, I suppose we could call it, for that one. So I can't give you that answer, unfortunately, right now.
Okay. I bet Zahabi. I scored it for Zahabi. So, but what do you got, Jake?
And I am not an expert at scoring fights, and you know, I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to be like, tweeting at MMA decisions if I'm not totally locked in. Well, first off, I don't. But even if I wasn't totally locked in, checking my phone, I'm not going to say that my scoring is anything you should go off of. But I was surprised that Zahabi won. I thought that Aldo had 1 and 2, and Zahabi, amazing third round. This was one of the best. That was one of the best rounds I think I've ever seen live.
It was a wild round.
It's another one. It went to decision. Okay, so bad card went to decision.
Yeah,
it's a dismissive way to do it. I mean, all the fights I named for the welterweight, top 5 welterweight, I believe most of them went to.
All of yours went to decision.
Well. Not all of them, because Rory and Lawler. That was not spoiler. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry for you, Jake.
Yep, that's right. I forgot. I always think that one went to decision.
I know it's wild, but either way, I mean, they went deep. I like classic fights that they had some time to breathe, right? Like that we've had things happen. There can be time for back and forth rather than to be marked by one event. Great fight, but that doesn't make it like a classic fight,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so that is the retirement of one legendary Brazilian. We have another Brazilian, maybe not with the same pedigree, but Gilbert Burns is fighting this weekend against Michael Morales. Scott, I'm going to let you talk because you said that you had something to say about Gilbert Burns, so give it to us.
Yeah, the thing with Gilbert Burns here is, like, obviously, there is empirical evidence that he has lost 3 fights in a row. We've all seen it. He's on a 3-fight losing skid. This is all against the best that we have at 170 pounds. First, he lost a decision to Belal Muhammad that was put together a little more last minute. Then he lost to Jack Dalla Maddalena. Like I said, he was going to win. He survives another 77 seconds. Almost definitely is going to win that one. And then, yes, he got the doors blown off him by Sean Brady. That's the one that's troubling. I will give you that. But these are all guys that we're talking about for that welterweight title picture outside of the upcoming former lightweight champion who's challenging for that belt. This is the whole picture. He's lost to them. Otherwise, and he lost to Hamzat as well, like you mentioned, but that is a very much a middleweight and also a middleweight title contender now. We're not talking about him losing to bums. I'm not ready to write him off just yet.
Those losses haven't aged bad at all.
No, definitely not. Now, the odds makers are assuming that Gilbert Burns is toast at this point. Based on the odds, he's plus 575 underdog against Michael Morales. It's one of the bigger underdogs that we've seen in a main event in a while. Burns was plus 175 against Sean Brady, plus 142 against Jack Della Maddalena, favored against Belal Muhammad. This is all not that long ago. That was 2 years ago, almost to the day, when he fought. So,
life comes at you fast in MMA.
Life comes at you fast. And then he won 2 rounds against Jack Della Maddalena and then got flash knocked out with a minute and a half left. That, I don't know if I've told the story on the podcast or not, but when I was at that fight, man, Gilbert Burns was crying hysterically after that. And, the fans just embraced him. He hugged 20 fans on his way out of the octagon. It was a beautiful thing. Made me really love it.
Gilbert Burns is a crier. I've seen him cry a lot.
Newark was a similar story after Belal Muhammad, but it just shows how much he cares and devotes his life to the sport.
Really, really cares about. He does grappling matches all the time.
Legend in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, super legend in jiu-jitsu. So, how do I see this fight going? I don't know, man. This is a tough one. The odds are silly here. They are straight up silly. And but you look at it, it's
it's an undefeated killer,
Undefeated killer, Gilbert Burns on the way out. It's so hard to just sit here and say Gilbert Burns is, still that guy after that fight against Brady, who's so bad. I wish I could say oh, put a face on Gilbert Burns, but I don't know, man. I'm probably not betting this one.
It's tough to touch it, but
yeah, I mean, look, Michael Morales, there's a lot of shine there. He's 17-0 overall, 4-0 in the UFC. But I mean, he beat Neil Magny his last time out. unfortunately, Neil Magny is not the same Neil Magny, and I think that is very clear. He is much closer to that washed label that unfortunately gets thrown around for certain fighters than I would say for Gilbert Burns in this scenario. So this is a giant step up. I feel like there is a little too much hype going against Burns and for Morales that it's not really in line with the that reality that we live in.
Yeah, I might. You know what? It's some pretty good odds on Gilbert. I feel like I might take a tiny sprinkle on that one. You know, why not? Some pizza money, as Eric would say.
There you go.
Alrighty, so with that, I think that rounds out our main event. There's some other good fights. Scott, so you were just telling us earlier that you're actually not terribly disappointed with this as far as an Apex card goes. So Scott, what's your fight to watch?
For the event rating.
Honestly, well, we'll get to that in a bit, but as far as my fight to watch, because I think there are some very compelling fights here. I think there's some very good matchmaking, which I'm really appreciative of. And one of those fights that I like the way they matched it up, Jared Gordon against Thiago Moises. These guys are basically in about the same point, I think, in their career arcs, and in terms of what their results have dictated they should be at. You don't always see that happen. Sometimes they feed someone to a young lion, or maybe someone falls out or whatever. I mean, Jared Gordon's lost a bunch of opponents in his last fight he was supposed to have. It didn't happen. This one looks good. I hope it happens. I think it's very well matched. I want to see what happens here. I like it. And also, New York guy, Jared Gordon.
There we go. Eric, how about you?
I've always been a Thiago Moises fan, honestly. I bet a ton of money on him. I think he's cashed for me a couple times as an underdog. But I'm going to I want to see Julian Erosi here. He just fought a month ago. He literally just fought a month ago against Darren Elkins, and, you know, he dominated that performance. He probably didn't even get a scratch on him because Darren Elkins looked not very good. But yeah, I mean, Erosa Costa, I think it's going to be a fun fight. And Erosa usually has bangers, right? So that's probably like my favorite fight to look for. I believe it's the first fight on the main card, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I like that fight, and you know, the main event. To steal a term from Scott, this card does seem like some fights, just some fights. But we'll see.
I believe the originator of where I got that from is the co-main event podcast featuring Ben Folks and Chad Dundas. So I'm gonna give props to them as well.
Good, great group. Love those guys.
And then just because I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, Melchizedek Costa, fun name to pronounce. I'm just showing off at this point.
I didn't even bother trying.
Well, a little bit. I wonder, you know what? He makes it sound like that he knows what he's pronouncing there, Eric. But what if he's just fooling us? What if he goes on the
there we
street
go.
and some Brazilians go up to him and be like, "You don't know what the heck you're talking about, dude."
The accent sold.
Thank
the
you.
accents.
I told you. I've been saying it. I have a weird thing with accents. Like I'm like a look-see do, or like I don't know what you'd say for like auditory, but I don't know. Like that's what John Jones says he is. He's a look-see do. Look-see do.
I see. Yes.
Yeah. For like accents, I feel like, and the more like bizarre the accent is, like the easier it is for me to do it.
You're a look-your-do.
Yeah, there we go. Look here, do. Okay, enough of that, Scott. Let's get back to this card. Give us your event rating for this one. It's an Apex card, so we'll see what it is.
You know, I think it's actually on the better side of Apex cards. What we have is an event rating of 25 at present. That is pretty solid, frankly. We used to have Apex cards that were in the 3s and the 2s and the 7s, and it was very regular. And we are not seeing that as much anymore. They have moved away from just prospect every single fight. And that was more what I had an issue with, was the fact that these just became almost UFC Challenger Series, for those who remember Strikeforce. It's a far cry from what we had even just a few months ago. So I think it's a solid one. 25 sounds about right for this.
Alrighty, sounds good. That's honestly, I'm pretty impressed with that. So a lot of good talent coming into this card compared to what we typically see on an Apex card. With that, to round out this event, before we go into your 3 bets in 3 minutes, Eric, how did we do on this past weekend?
This weekend, so I missed on Bilal Muhammad. I really thought he was going to win, but other than that, I thought we did great. Modestas Buskasis was our long shot pick by decision, was our long shot pick of the card. And I don't know if anybody watched that fight, but you know, we might have gotten a little lucky on the scorecards. Seemingly everybody had Ian Kudalaba, but Buskasis gets the decision, plus 330, cash it. I had also talked about Daniel Santos. This wasn't a bet, But I said Daniel Santos as an underdog was a good value. Trains with Charles Oliveira, expected a ton of improvements, and he showed out, looked great. Won, and then also Valentina Shevchenko, the plus 120 underdog by the time we closed. I mean, that was great. That was fantastic. And then we only missed on Bilal Muhammad by decision. So, 2 for 3 plus 330 cash. You can't do much better than that.
There we go. We love to hear it. Let's keep the ball rolling for this weekend. So, Eric, the floor is yours. What are your 3 bets in 3 minutes?
Yeah, so let's talk about the fights this weekend. We got, we're back at the warehouse here. We're back at Apex. One underdog here that I want to get in right off the bat, and I like a couple here on this card. But one underdog that I absolutely love is Gabe Green. He's plus 200. He's fighting Mateus Camilo. He's making his UFC debut. Gabe Green has fought the elite of the elite competition. Gabe Green, obviously, he's got the physique, and his striking's pretty solid. He did get knocked out by Brian Battle last time, which was a wild fight. But don't sleep on Gabe Green too much here. I think that Green has a great physique. I think that he's more battle tested. He fought Ian Gary to a decision. He's done a lot in his time in the UFC. So for me, I think that Gabe Green is the guy to target here. I actually think that he could win by knockout. He's plus 550 to win by knockout. I'm going to take the money line here for our purposes, but there's just a lot here for Gabe Green that he's worked with, and he's a good prospect. I actually think that he could eventually get close to ranked status at this division. So I'll take Gabe Green on the money line plus 200, and then we'll go to another fight. This one's actually, I believe, the first fight on the main card, subject to change obviously, but Julian Erosa plus 146 on the money line. Erosa he's really good at front headlocks and in striking exchanges. He keeps his chin up, but he also throws power, so he's gonna fight for your money, but you might get knocked out. Now he's fighting and I'm gonna butcher this name, but Mezcal Costa. He's fighting Costa. Obviously, Erosa is going to be coming forward. He's going to be coming forward quickly. He's looking to get a finish. I don't expect this one to go too long into the decision, but Erosa is plus 420 on the money line, on the submission prop. I'm going to take his money line plus 146. I actually kind of like him to win by KO plus 800. But Erosa looked really good against Darren Elkins. Obviously, Elkins looked like a shell of himself. He's no longer the fighter that he once was. But for me, I think that Erosa has the length, the reach advantage here. He has the power advantage. And while Costa could get on top position in the grappling exchanges, I think Erosa is real dangerous in that front headlock game. So I like Erosa on the money line. I don't hate inside the distance at plus 275 either. But both are good. But I'm looking to back Erosa here to be sure. And last but certainly not least, Rodolfo Bellato is fighting Paul Craig in the co-main event. Now I'm not touching the money line on either side here. I don't think there's any value to be had. Where I like the value though, Paul Craig fights super low volume and is kind of always waiting back on his opponent to make the first move, so he can counter, go for submissions, either whether it be off his back or front headlocks or something like that. So I think that we're actually looking at a prolonged fight. Now I have a different way of betting this one than I usually do. Usually I just say, fight goes to decision plus 400, good value, right? But for me, I actually think that the best way to bet this is fight starts round 2. It's minus 144 on FanDuel right now. So if you bet that, you increment your bets. 1.5 units is what I have recommended. You'll see it in my article in the New York Post newspaper on Friday and also Saturday morning on the web. But I would like to bet fight starts round 2, fight goes over 1.5 rounds, fight starts round 3, and then fight goes to decision. Risk 1.5 units, spread it between those 3 bets. But for me, I think that we're looking at more of a prolonged bout than we usually do. Paul Craig goes deep into fights. Like even when he gets a finish or when he gets finished, usually that doesn't come until later. So those are my 3 bets in 3 minutes, and hopefully make some money for you again this week.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that, Eric. And with that wraps up this weekend. Let's get to the other agenda items of news of the week. Scott, why don't you take it away for quick hits?
Yeah, I want to roll through a couple really quick here. They're big, but we'll go quickly. Patchy Mix is now a free agent. There is no matching period, according to Aryeh Helwani, but PFL did announce that they are agreeing to go their separate ways and not extend the contract. Paves the way for a almost definite UFC signing. And there's been some speculation now that maybe he could step into the shoes of Marlon Chito Vera, who is unfortunately out of his fight against Mario Bautista for UFC 316 here in this area in Newark. We don't know anything about that yet. That is yet to be seen, but it's on the table. But we did lose that fight, unfortunately. Derek Lewis has been put into place to fight against Tyson Teixeira as the headliner for the Nashville card that's going to take place on July 12th. This all according to MMA Junkie. We also have another smaller level fight night as well from the Apex being reported by MMA Fighting. This one, Tatsuro Taira against Amir Albazi, and that's on August 2nd. Eric, you got some as well you wanted to share.
Yeah, a couple PFL announced that they're like expanding to like the Pacific, really looking at Australia and New Zealand. There's actually like a bunch of MMA talent there, Jack Della Maddalena being one of them. So, I think that's kind of interesting. I know obviously, say what you will about the PFL recently, but that's an interesting little tidbit. And also, Holly Holm, she's retired from the UFC and was going to fight over at the GFL, which was that random promotion that whatever, it doesn't exist. Holly Holm is now boxing for Jake Paul's promotion, MVP Promotions. They announced that yesterday at the press conference where Jake Paul will also be fighting, I believe, Cesar Chavez Jr. And she'll be on that.
Julio Chavez Jr. Yeah, JCC.
Julio Cesar. Yeah.
One other thing to note for PFL, Don Davis announced that all the international fights would finally be coming to the U.S. for streaming, especially in lieu of this past weekend, the Paul Hughes fight not being able to watch in America, starting June 1st. So we'll see what happens.
Let me throw in another PFL too, because this kind of broke this morning. The PFL announced that they're going to have Sergio Pettis fight against Rafian Stotts as part of their middleweight and light heavyweight semifinal event. That one takes place June 27th in Chicago.
All right. Does that round out quick hits? I think we might have hit all.
That rounds out quick hits.
We hit all the points. All righty. Let's talk about some homework. Scott, would you remind the viewers the last one that we had?
We had assigned last week Matt Hughes against Carlos Newton #1 at UFC 34.
Yeah. No. I mean, listen. It was a great fight. I did not know that this was the infamous Carlos Newton getting smashed into the cage. I mean, listen, the first round was great. There was a lot of flip-flopping on bottom and top, so that made for an interesting first round. But, I mean, that KO slam at the end.
Scary knockout, back of the head onto the mat, pretty scary. But, Matt Hughes, beast, obviously I'm a big fan of his. So, yeah, good fight.
That's an iconic fight, and so many fighters that I've talked to before said that this is like their classic fight that got them into the sport and got them hooked, so I had to shout that out as well. And if you have some memories of this fight, or maybe you went back and watched it too, make sure you leave some stuff in the comments about it. We'd love to hear it.
Yes. Alrighty, so we're short on time, Scott. Let's just get through this homework for this week and this week in MMA. What do you got?
For your homework this week, we've got Jim Miller against Joe Lozon #1. This one was at the tail end of 2012, I believe. So make sure you check this one out. You're not going to be disappointed, I promise.
And then what happened this week in MMA?
This week in MMA was UFC 262. They were in Houston. This was the second card getting back from COVID, May 15, 2021. The classic fight that we had between Charles Do Bronx Oliveira and Michael Chandler. Just a war for barely 5 minutes. And this one, honestly, go back and watch that one too. Have fun.
There we go. I remember where I was during that fight. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me. We got to get out of here, and I'm sure that you at home have stuff to do, but watch those fights and enjoy.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.